Hannah and Jeremy with the Savory Suitcase. This week we begin our journey to Iceland to spend a week in the country known as the Land of Fire and Ice.
After just under 8 hours, we had a very windy touchdown at the Keflavik airport, where the baggage handlers gave us our first clue of just how cold it was.
We arrived at 6 a.m. local time, with our internal clock thinking it was about 2 a.m., and of course, getting no sleep on the plane. We planned a relatively easy excursion for our first day, and to give us something to do before it was time to check into our hotel. And with transfers directly from the airport, the Blue Lagoon is one of the best places to head your first day in Iceland.
The Blue Lagoon is famous for its silica and mineral-rich water, giving it that distinctive blue hue. The water is heated with the geothermal heat and is located within a lava field, creating an otherworldly landscape. The lifeguards are even dressed in full winter gear to protect them from the cold, but the water keeps you just warm enough to be comfortable.
The entrance fee to the Blue Lagoon includes a couple of extras besides just admission, including the use of fresh towels, a silica mud mask, and a drink of your choice. I'm not really sure what kind of benefit the mask is supposed to have, but I do know that after about 10 minutes, it felt like it was starting to freeze onto my skin. When Jeremy started to form icicles on his hat and beard, we knew it was probably time to go.
The 24 hours with no sleep was finally starting to catch up to us, and we knew the next stop needed to be our hotel. We spent our 6 nights in Reykjavik at the Grandi by Center Hotels. The hotel was modern, clean, and included a complimentary morning breakfast.
Our favorite part was all the sayings they had around the hotel. The front desk told us that these were translations of common Icelandic phrases, like when we say, "Don't let the cat out of the bag." Our room had a balcony, which is one of the things that we highly recommend including in your hotel if you are visiting with the hopes of seeing the Northern Lights.
We were lucky enough to get an alert around 2 a.m. that the lights were visible, and we saw them for our very first time ever. We were lucky enough to see the lights twice more during our trip.
The next day, we headed to a local grocery store. Some things were rather familiar, and some things were definitely not. I think it's chicken. Food in Iceland is quite expensive, so we wanted to grab a couple of things to cut down on the cost of eating out for every meal. We headed out to the meetup spot at the Harpa Concert Hall for our first tour of the trip, which happened to be a food tour with the Reykjavik Food Walk. I'm going to let our guide Ben explain some of the amazing food that we had.
The Reykjavik area, we've been trying every day. We are going to be going for the old traditional Icelandic cuisine with a little bit of a moderate twist on the old traditional Icelandic cuisine. Usually when people do come to the country and they research our old traditional Icelandic cuisine, first thing will pop up is the ram's testicles, the sheep face, the fermented rotten shark. We're not. Today, I know it must sound like a bummer, but we will be going with just moderately good lamb and fish dishes. I wanted to check with you guys. Built in 1805, the restaurant we're going to inside of here, it opened in 1932. It's been here since 1932. Definitely changed owners throughout the years. Now it's a really good restaurant slash cafe. We're having the Icelandic flatbread with some butter and then some smoked lamb on top. Then we're having some grandma style pancake, which basically is this thin pancake. In Iceland we have these thin pancakes almost like a crepe, which we usually just put sugar on and roll it up into a roll. So let's go check it out. So we are here. This is our second stop of the day, the famous Icelandic hot dog stand. This stand over here opened up in 1937. They have been serving a shocking between 2,000 to 3,000 hot dogs here every single day. Wow. Crazy. It's actually the most popular restaurant in the whole Reykjavik area, selling 2,000 of these bad boys every single day. The Icelandic hot dog is a little bit different than your typical hot dog. It's a lamb-based hot dog. What really makes it so different and good tasting is the condiments on it. It has 5 condiments on it. It has raw onions, fried crunchy onions. They put down some ketchup. They put down the, again, the ketchup's a little bit different tasting ketchup than the usual ketchup. Made here in Iceland, has some apple cider in it. Has a little bit of a different taste than your typical Heinz ketchup. Then they add the hot dog, which is also boiled in this beer water mixture, which gives it this extra good flavor to the hot dog itself. They put a line of sweet brown mustard over it. The mustard is made here in Iceland. It doesn't really have too many mustard seeds in it, so it doesn't really have this strong mustardy taste to it. It's its own kind of sauce, really. And then they add a line of remoulade on top, which is basically a mayonnaise-based sauce with some relish in it. I know it sounds like a lot. It sounds like a lot of condiments, way too many on there, but it's really beautiful seafood restaurant here in the heart of Reykjavik. This is the most popular seafood restaurant in all of Reykjavik. They sell, we're having their char here, their Arctic char. They sell about 5 tons of only Arctic char in this restaurant a year. It is crazy, crazy popular restaurant. We're having 2 dishes. We're having their signature dish, which is the pan-fried, honey-glazed Arctic char. You can actually see a photo of the dish right over here. Then we are having their brokkfiskur. Brokkfiskur is a very traditional old Icelandic meal. It's something that in the earlier days people would do with a leftover piece of fish. It's always white meat fish. In this case, you have cod. What they basically do, they take the cod and mash it with potatoes. Have some spinach, some pickled red onions, deep fried tail of lobster. Like I said before, we don't really have those pickled red lobsters, so it is a deep fried tail of langoustine. Have a date puree over it, a leaf over it, and I do recommend to squeeze the lime over it as well. The lime really makes a difference here. We're here. I think I'm just going to introduce the place inside. Let's just go in. Recipe for rye bread, the same bread we have in the fish at the third restaurant. So the owner's great-great-grandmother was used to her leftover piece of bread. She would take her bread, she would bake it again, she would crumble it up, and she'd add it into ice cream. So you have here in front of you rye bread ice cream. I know it sounds really weird, but it really is amazing. Have some whipped cream on top, their homemade rhubarb syrup over.
The rest of our time in Iceland, we sought out unique places to eat. We enjoyed a few different pizzas, some local bakeries, and of course, those famous hot dogs any chance we got. Before we set off to discover the countryside, we planned to spend a whole day exploring the capital city of Reykjavik. Our first stop was the Church of Hallgrímur.
The architecture on the outside was designed to pay homage to the nature Iceland is known for, like the basalt columns which are mimicked in the church's facade.
The church is the tallest church in Iceland, and one of the tallest structures in the country, and the top offers some amazing views on a clear day. cold.
The pipe organ located inside the sanctuary has over 5,000 pipes and is the largest organ in the country. It was installed in the 1990s, and if you're thinking about a unique souvenir, it is possible to buy a gift certificate in the church's store which certifies that you are the owner of a particular pipe in the organ.
The next stop for the day was the Perlan. The Perlan is a natural history museum with a focus on the things that make Iceland truly unique, like the aurora, volcanoes, and the cliffs that house the summer puffin colonies.
If you go over there, you will see something very similar to this. Take about 5 minutes to see everything, and it's a self-guided tour. So I'm not gonna come with you basically, and in the end of the cave you will find another door that opens automatically as you approach. After that door, some spiral stairs to do, and you will end up in the second floor where we have a big exhibition about the glacier. Temperature inside.
The ice cave installation is a recreation of a real glacier cave built using over 350 tons of snow. It is kept at -5 degrees Fahrenheit or -15 degrees Celsius.
We had to grab a couple of photos with our Viking hats that my parents got us for Christmas. Maybe we can use this as next year's Christmas card.
The top level is the 360-degree observation deck.
We decided to grab lunch before we headed to our next stop. We had a pizza made with cod cheeks, arugula, apricots, and pesto. It was surprisingly delicious.
We also found out about halfway through our meal that the restaurant rotates, so we got some good views of Reykjavik from here as well.
The lava show was our next stop. The location in Reykjavik has opened very recently, but has been running in Vik for quite a few years. We didn't expect a volcano to erupt while we were there, so this seemed like a good backup plan.
In the first place because I love volcano. So I studied volcanology at university. Now it's pretty safe. If you're worried about it, nothing in this room can really burn except you guys. So we should be good. Well, it's getting very hot for him, so he needs this protection. Now that's what they use for metal industry, or if a volcanologist needs to take a sample from a lava field during an eruption. And on the helmet, there's a thin layer of gold on the visor, because gold reflects the heat and the light very well. And that's what they use on spacesuits, to protect them from the sun. It's the same technology.
Iceland is one of the most active volcanic places on Earth, with a significant eruption every 3 to 5 years on average. The Eldgjá eruption marked the end of an era where settlers came to Iceland. From there on, everyone was warned from setting sail to the hellish island of ice and fire. This was made immortal.
You can see the bubble on the surface. It's just the steam going to the lava, making this tiny explosion. Have you heard about Pellé's hair? It's a thin filament of lava. Therefore, when lava is falling over an edge and the wind is blowing, you can have this kind of formation. They cool down very quickly. It's not as liquid as before. But it's still like very hot there. The lava is still very hot and liquid. And that's because lava is cooling down over the edges of the floor. About, like I said, like lava is 35 around, but inside is still very hot. And in nature, if lava is flowing down a slope, like it's doing here at the moment, maybe it will be able to flow out of its own insulation. And if the lava is going to cool down very quickly, and it's still glowing, so it's still above 600 Celsius, 1100 Fahrenheit. I can see on all this bit that at the bottom the black sand is sticking to it. Any more questions? That's still hot.
Keep dancing with the devil, baby, there's a lava back.
The second night we were there, we were treated to an even more impressive showing of the Northern Lights than on our first night.
Originally seen from just our balcony, we braved the cold and headed out to the port area to get a full 360-degree view.
After spending a few days in Reykjavik, we joined a tour and headed out to see the glacier lagoons along the southeastern coast of Iceland.
For anyone who doesn't know, we are from the land of sunshine, aka Florida, and we do not have any experience driving in winter conditions, so when we started planning our trip for March, we knew that we could encounter many different types of, let's say, unfavorable weather.
So we decided to book excursions through different tour companies and leave the driving to the locals.
We booked the Jökulsárlón, Glacier Lagoon, and South Iceland day tour from Reykjavik through Bus Travel Iceland. We picked this tour because of the itinerary and all of the additional stops along the way to Jökulsárlón.
This tour is a rather long day, totaling 14 hours round trip. The drive to the Glacier Lagoon is over 380 kilometers, or about 230 miles. Along the route, we got to see the vast diversity of landscapes in Iceland, from lava fields to moss-covered plains and mountains.
The southern portion of Iceland contains some of its most notable volcanoes, such as Hekla, Elja, and Katla. There are also many glaciers along this drive, creating glacial lagoons and waterfalls. The weather in Iceland changes very quickly, and we experienced this just outside of the town of Vik, as the weather turned into snow flurries. Our tour made a quick detour to experience the snow at the mossy lava fields. And, as we mentioned before, as Floridians, we don't get to see snow very often.
We stopped at the Jökulsárlón Lagoon first, which is right next door to Jökulsárlón and significantly smaller, but offers a much more up-close view of the glacier. Because we visited in March, the lagoon was almost completely frozen over, with the big icebergs being pushed right up to the shoreline.
The next stop was the main attraction, the Jökulsárlón Glacier Lagoon. This lagoon is arguably the most popular in Iceland, and it is easy to see why. In the summer, this area is full of large icebergs. The Glacier Lagoon flows through a short waterway into the Atlantic Ocean, leaving chunks of ice on a black sand beach known as Diamond Beach.
During our visit, the lagoon was almost completely frozen over, so we did not see the massive icebergs, but instead we got the opportunity to see the seals that make this area home during the winter months. The black sand is a unique feature to the beaches in Iceland and exists because the sand is ground down from black volcanic rock formed when the lava cools and solidifies.
After a dinner stop, we headed back in the direction of Reykjavik, making 2 stops to visit waterfalls on the way back. The first of which is Stjörnufoss, which is found in Kleifar. This waterfall is on the shorter side of the waterfalls in Iceland, but it has a stunning backdrop of volcanic rock, cliffs, and green slopes. Because we were visiting in near freezing weather, the waterfall was almost completely iced over.
The last stop of the journey was at the Jökulsárlón waterfall. Jökulsárlón is most popular for the 360-degree views available in the summer months, where you can climb behind the falls and get a unique perspective. In the winter, we were greeted with another iced-over falls, giving a real winter wonderland vibe, even in March.
We were just inside for like 5 seconds and then the sunset.
Reykjavik is located on the western part of the country, sitting on the Atlantic Ocean with much of the city right on the water. Our hotel was only a quick walk to the harbor, so we booked a Northern Lights boat ride for our first night in town. Unfortunately, on that night we were not successful. However, the following night we had much better luck.
Before the boat had even left the dock, we were able to see the lights. If the lights are faint, it is better to see them against a dark sky, so that's why we were moving away from the city lights. No one can truly predict the northern lights, but they have come up with the KP index, which indicates how likely it is to see them, and on this night the number was a 7.
Please look up as well as to the front and to the back. It's getting really, really strong. It's moving!
I'm not listening to you about going downstairs. Two big robbers in the middle of the Aurora Borealis. Have to rob a bank to pay for this trip.
The northern lights can be an array of colors, most often green, but sometimes purple and red are also visible. They occur when waves of energized particles from the sun called solar wind bombard our atmosphere. The next day, we headed back down to the harbor to set out on our next sea adventure, but first, coffee.
Whale watching is popular in the summer months and in some of the further northern parts of the country. We knew booking in March might be a miss, but we still wanted to give it a try, especially since we were supposed to go on a whale watching tour in Alaska, but then I got COVID.
After heading out into open waters, we caught our first glimpse of wildlife, the white-beaked dolphin. They are one of the only dolphins that reside in Icelandic waters for the entire year and are a very common sight on these tours. We were lucky to see quite a large pod of them surrounding the boat.
Is a humpback whale. It's one of the biggest species we get to see in these waters, up to roughly 18 meters. That is roughly the half of the length of this boat. There, and as you can see, we got two. We got two humpback whales there, side by side. And so humpback whales, they don't actually live in pods. They don't have a designated pod the same way white big dolphins do. Sides and a rainbow. That's adorable.
De er altså mega dårlige til at holde vejret.
It is estimated that less than 1% of people living on planet Earth will see a whale in their lifetime, so we do truly feel grateful for having had this experience. today we are exploring the Golden Circle and all of the most recommended stops. It was our last day in Iceland, and we may have saved the best for last. After about a 45-minute drive outside of Reykjavik, we reached our first stop, Þingvellir National Park.
This area is located directly over the Atlantic Ocean ridge that separates North America and Europe. The landscape in the area is a direct reflection of being situated on the tectonic plates for millennia, evidence of the rifting of Earth's crust.
Snorkeling is also a popular activity here, but the water sits at about 1 to 2 degrees above freezing, so that didn't really sound like a fun afternoon for us. We booked our tour with Troll Expeditions, and our tour guide was an Icelandic native whose family had lived on the island for generations. He took us to one of his favorite spots near his hometown.
The Lagervatn Fontana Hot Springs is a geothermal hotspot. The volcanic activity in the area makes the ground so warm that locals bake rye bread directly in the ground. It takes about 24 hours to bake. Next stop was the Efstedeler Dairy Farm. Run by a group of siblings who took over the farm from their parents, they have turned the area into a must-stop along the Golden Circle, offering ice cream and cafe lattes.
We made our way another 15 minutes into the highlands and reached Geyser Hot Springs. Much like Old Faithful in Yosemite, Geyser erupts at very regular intervals. Here, it is about every 5 to 10 minutes. The temperature of the water in the geysers can reach up to 100 degrees Celsius or 212 degrees Fahrenheit.
Gullfoss, translated to Golden Falls, is one of Iceland's most iconic and beloved waterfalls. In the summer, approximately 140 cubic meters, or 459 cubic feet, of water surges down the waterfall every second. While in the winter, like when we visited, that number drops to about 109 cubic meters, or 358 cubic feet. The falls are still quite impressive, and the frozen areas do create a pretty unique pattern and features.
The final stop on our trip was a chance to get up close and personal with a few friendly Icelandic horses. A lot of people believe the horses in Iceland are actually wild, probably due to their appearance. But all of the horses in the country are actually owned. It is unsafe to pull off the road and try to pet or feed them. However, these horses are a special stop at a farm called Brew, where they have created a designated parking and an area for these friendly horses to interact with visitors. They have also provided a few snacks that you can share with them.
Thank you so much for joining us on our adventure through Iceland. Please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and we will see you on the next adventure.